Hi, I'm Umbreon Libris, and I have a significant bias against the legendary Pokemon. As a rule, I don't like them. I don't use them in my teams in-game, I don't like using them in competitive teams, and I'm grouping all kinds of legendary and sub-legendary and mythical Pokemon in that. But it wasn't always like that. What it really means to be a legendary Pokemon has changed over time. My first game was Pokemon Yellow, but it was really Generation 2 and Pokemon Crystal in particular that really solidified me as a Pokemon fan for life. So that's like my formative experience with Pokemon. And in the first two generations, legendary Pokemon were nothing like they are now. The way legendary Pokemon are handled in the game has really changed, from what their role is in the game to how you find out about them and even how you obtain them. So I want to go through the different kinds of legendary Pokemon and talk a little bit about what does and doesn't work. And to do that, I invited my good friend, Birdkeeper Toby.
Hey, Pokemon Masters, Umbreon Libris, Birdkeeper Toby here, and I think if you had told me as a child that legendary Pokemon weren't cool, I'd say that's pretty controversial. My first Pokemon game was Pokemon Yellow, and there weren't many sprites programmed as like overworld encounters. Snorlax was clearly special, but there was two of them, and you could catch them and they were just asleep out in public. But Moltres, Zapdos, Articuno waiting for you at the end of their dungeons, these overworld sprites for these magnificent birds, might just make you want to become a bird keeper. It was simple, but effective, and I think right up to the age of 13, 14, I wouldn't have been ashamed to go into battle with a full team of legendary Pokemon at level 100, just thinking, yeah, I'm a Pokemon master. Maybe that's a sign of youth, or maybe it's a sign of the times, because around then it was like Generation 4, and I think that is at the point that legendary Pokemon just began to feel a little bit less special for me, a little bit less legendary. And in fact, in recent years, I've been so disappointed with the implementation of legendary and particularly mythical Pokemon in the Pokemon world, I've even done a whole series on how just, if I got to be a creative at Game Freak, how I would make these Pokemon better.
What I think made the legendary Pokemon of Generations 1 and 2 really special was how little you actually knew about them. Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres were all hidden at the back of really complex dungeons with powerful Pokemon. Articuno and Moltres were both in optional parts of the Seafoam Islands and Victory Road and required you to complete puzzles in order to find them, and the power plant where you find Zapdos is entirely optional and even requires some backtracking to find. And you're given almost no indication that those Pokemon are there at all. I remember seeing Articuno flying over the ocean through one of the gatehouse binoculars, and there may have been one NPC who mentions Pokemon cries coming from deeper in Victory Road, but that's it. I don't think there's any mention of Zapdos. And so when you actually go out of your way to explore all of these dungeons really thoroughly, and you end up coming face to face with a Pokemon that you had no idea would be there, and it's more powerful than anything you've got, and it keeps breaking out of every Pokeball you throw at it, when you finally do catch it, that feels like a huge accomplishment.
And I think this is pretty similar to how Mewtwo exists in the Generation 1 games, although you do learn about it kind of through this supplementary material found in the Cinnabar Mansion, learning about its birth from a mythical Pokemon, Mew. And Mew wasn't even in the game. It was a legendary Pokemon so rare it wasn't in the game. So Mewtwo is like the closest you can get to Mew, and I think that's again part of just what makes it so special. Ho-Oh and Lugia from Generation 2 are pretty similar in design, but not as extreme. They're on the boxes of the game, so you know they exist and you know that they must be special. But, and here's the really cool thing, to complete Pokemon Gold or Pokemon Silver, you don't need to encounter either of these Pokemon. You'll learn about them. Presumably your natural curiosity will have you talking with NPCs about the great bird that once flew over Ecruteak City when the tower burnt down. Or you might talk to the people of Olivine City about the creature that lives in the Whirl Island. The creature that they use to threaten naughty children to kind of keep them in line. These Pokemon are clearly deeply tied in with the lore of Pokemon Gold and Silver, and yet you don't have to encounter them. And I think that makes them even more special when you eventually do find them. Don't get me wrong, after your 7th gym badge, you will be nudged in their direction by the radio director who will give you the silver or rainbow wing, and you'll wonder, what kind of creature could leave behind a key item that looks like this? And when you eventually encounter these Pokemon, not because the story tells you to, but because of your own curiosity, it's a real reward that you even get to battle them, let alone catch them, because that in itself is a struggle. The thing we used to have to do, you save before the battle and you make sure you've got a good stock of Ultra Balls, because it's going to take you 5, 10, 20 attempts to catch this thing. The game does certainly not gift you the Pokemon, and actually, if I had to have one criticism for Heart Gold and Soul Silver, it would be the fact that they revised the story so that you have to encounter the box legendary. I don't like that. Oh, and that's not even mentioning Generation 3, where they kind of transferred this exploration thing into the Reggies. A Braille puzzle hidden underneath a single underwater patch that you have to dive into, after solving a surfing puzzle involving rapids that will only allow you to find this dive spot under specific circumstances, on a patch of water next to Pacifildog Town, which you do not have to visit at all in the game ever if you don't want to. Or to send you off on some quest where you're going to catch a Whale Lord and a Relicanth and use Fly in the center of a room and use Rock Smash on an individual space to unlock the chamber where the Reggies are. Again, they exist as rewards for my inquisitive nature, and that just makes me happy.
And this kind of style of legendary Pokemon has continued to exist, at least until recently. Often it's the member of the box group of legendaries that isn't featured in that game. Like in Ruby and Sapphire, it's Rayquaza that's super out of the way and requires some serious Mach Bike skills to reach, whereas in Emerald it's Groudon and Kyogre that are out of the way. Same with Giratina in Diamond and Pearl, or Zygarde in X and Y, or Necrozma in Sun and Moon. But over time, they have become less special. Many of them can only be obtained after beating the Elite Four, so they end up being more dex filler than exciting team members. For many of them, the exploration isn't that extensive, or it just requires you to go back to visit somewhere you've already been to before, rather than somewhere new, and so the environment isn't that exciting. And honestly, even though this style of legendary Pokemon is really good, it's also getting kind of repetitive. If there isn't something to make that Pokemon really special, like some complex puzzles or even just enough NPCs talking about it to create that mystique, it's just going to end up being another Pokemon at the back of a cave.
You know, the other kind of legendary Pokemon that I think worked really well in the past is roaming Pokemon. Starting with the legendary beasts, Raikou, Entei, and Suicune, although Suicune and Crystal is more of a static encounter. Raikou and Entei certainly count. And you first encounter these three Pokemon in the basement of the Burnt Tower. Now that's the first time you really do have to encounter a legendary Pokemon as part of the story. But it's not so much an encounter, you're not forced into battle with them, you just see them. And again, they have kind of different overworld sprites that light up in different colors as they dart off into the overworld, and you might think that's it. That might be the only time that I ever see these Pokemon. And then you're walking around the Johto region, and you're on a patch of grass in a regular route where you expect to see Stantlers and Sentrets and Pidgeys. And a different bit of music starts playing, and the screen is flashing differently, and suddenly Raikou, Entei, or Suicune has appeared. The Pokemon is level 40, your Pokemon are probably in their 20s or 30s. What are you to do? Can you even move fast enough to hit it? What if this is your only chance? What if you knock it out? Okay, you're gonna try an attack. You land a move, it removes a tiny bit of HP, and then the Pokemon flees. You can try and now track it in your Pokedex, but of course the moment you fly to wherever it is, it's moved, so you're gonna have to employ some strategy. Or you could just go about your Johto adventure, building up a relationship with this legendary Pokemon just as and when it appears. It's really up to you. The story is decided by you. I think this transferred reasonably well into Generation 3 with Latios and Latias, Pokemon I love the designs of. And again, I think the thing that they did wrong when they did the remakes in Mega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire is making you encounter these Pokemon. It takes away the mystery, it takes away the elusiveness, the chase and the capture and the reward feeling that you get when you finally get these legendary Pokemon. And roaming Pokemon, cool concept, so they do it again in Generation 4, and it's Mesprit for some reason, and Cresselia for some reason. Why is Cresselia roaming? What's the point? Now this is just getting a bit repetitive, and by the time we get to Generation 5, that was the last time that we saw roaming Pokemon.
Lately, the majority of new legendary Pokemon have been encountered as a required part of the story, It started with Groudon and Kyogre in Ruby and Sapphire, and back then it was new and exciting. It wasn't something we'd seen before, except for sort of Suicune in Crystal, although that wasn't quite the same. But since then, it's just the same thing over and over again. And nowadays, we even have story encounters that are required captures. Like in Gen 6, if you defeat Xerneas or Yveltal, or if they defeat you, you just get to do the battle again and again until you do catch it. How is that supposed to feel special? Why are you expected to have some kind of attachment to these Pokemon that you just met and that you didn't work for at all? We even had legendaries that are just static encounters that aren't really part of the story and just require you to basically reach a certain point in the game to encounter. There's the Swords of Justice in Black 2 and White 2 where they're just standing there in the middle of the route waiting for you to encounter them. Or the Island Guardians in Alola, which you do have to beat the League in order to encounter, but then they're just there at their ruins waiting for you to come and catch them. We do still have some story legendaries that are done well, like Necrozma in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, where you have to defeat it twice, first as either Duskmane or Dawnwing's Necrozma, and then again as Ultra Necrozma, and you don't get to catch it either of those times, and then you have to battle it a third time in its base form at Mount Lanakila, and then you get a chance to try to catch it. You build up to it in that case, and the battles can be really tough, and so when you finally do catch it, that can feel like a serious accomplishment. But then that kind of experience is balanced out, and not in a good way, by legendaries that are just gifted to you, like Type Null or Kubfu.
And mythical Pokemon are a whole other deal entirely. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Mew was special. It was a Pokemon not even in the game. Celebi, again, it's the exact same deal, mentioned about, referenced in the Ilex Forest, but you can't just go and catch it. And by Generation 3, they kind of doubled up on the amount of mythical Pokemon, giving us both Drachi and Deoxys. And Deoxys, I think, managed to maintain this level of elusiveness. And this being just at a time that the internet was only beginning to get the ball rolling with things like Game FAQs and like help guides, and Cerebi.net had been going for 2 generations now, which means we were just about leaving the world of playground rumors. And so Deoxys, there was still this idea that maybe you could get it if you went to the space station in Moss Deep City and got the 100th launch. Rumors were still just about prevailing before they would be silenced forever. So mythical Pokemon continued to feel special, though Jirachi was given to you through special GameCube things, whether that was the extra bonus disc for Colosseum or Pokemon Channel here in Europe. But you know, there's 2 mythical Pokemon here, so I guess one to have just given to you through these bonus discs, and one that's still a mystery. But then, moving on to Generation 4, there are 5 mythical Pokemon. Fiona, Manaphy, Darkrai, Shaymin, and Arceus. Yeah, 5. This is getting silly now, and look, okay, they implemented them in a number of cool ways. Manaphy being obtainable through Pokemon Ranger with a limit of 1 per copy of the game. That's not save file, that's copy of the game. That was admittedly very, very cool, and in the game there were these events for Darkrai and Shaymin and Arceus. Realistically, Arceus has big ties to the Sinnoh region, but Shaymin's, as much as I love it, what's Shaymin's point within the region? And why is it getting a new form in Pokemon Platinum if it's a mythical Pokemon? What? Why are we seeing so much of this Pokemon that should be a mystery? Its existence should be a mystery. Generation 5 was the last time I think they did mythical Pokemon right, with Pokemon number 000 in the native Pokedex being Victini, a Pokemon that if you pre-ordered the game or played Pokemon Black and White, I think early enough, there was a Wi-Fi event to get the Liberty Pass, meaning you could go to a special island, do a special little event there, and catch Victini. It felt mythical, it felt special. But Genesect, Keldeo, Meloetta, these Pokemon were just given to you through Wi-Fi events with very little in-game stuff to kind of represent the Pokemon or how it even tied into the region of Unova. And sadly, that's been the trend ever since. I still to this day couldn't tell you what Marshadow or Zeraora have to do with the Alola region at all. I gotta give props though to one mythical Pokemon that really blew me out of the water. Meltan and Melmetal dropped into the Pokemon world by appearing in Pokemon Go on the Chikorita Community Day, just like randomly. No one was expecting it. Everyone's looking at it like, is it a Ditto? Is it an evolution of Ditto? What's it about? No one had any idea what this Pokemon was about, and it, as well as the related YouTube videos telling the story of Meltan and Melmetal, I don't really care that I don't know what region it comes from. I gotta give mad props to that way of introducing a Pokemon. I thought it was really special.
So, how can legendary Pokemon in general be better? Well, for one, I do think that there need to be fewer of them. Generation 1, there were only 5 legendary Pokemon. Generation 2, there were 6, and that's including the mythicals. By comparison, Generation 5 had 13. Generation 8 has 11 revealed so far, if you include the Galarian forms of the Kanto birds. Not to mention that modern Pokemon games let you catch tons of older legendary Pokemon from past generations without having to rely on transferring. And so I do think this legendary bloat contributes to my distaste for them, because it does kind of dilute their worth, their impact within the games. And it means that we get a lot of repetitive legendary Pokemon and very few that really have unique roles like Necrozma and Meltan.
If you really want to put Heatran in the region, just make it a rare Pokemon like Volcarona, maybe give it a pre-evolution. I mean, Heatran is cool, it could be a pseudo-legendary like Metagross or something. But by calling it a legendary Pokemon, I think we kind of lower the bar as to what a legendary Pokemon is. Maybe just kind of take some focus away from it so we can put the focus where it wants to be, where it needs to be, on these real myths and legends.
And the legendary Pokemon you do introduce, you really have to consider what their role in the game should be. Does every box art mascot legendary have to be a mandatory capture as part of the story? Or could we go back to the Gold and Silver days where they're more of a prize for exploring and adventuring? Does it even make sense for every legendary Pokemon to be obtainable? I certainly don't think the Island Guardians should be. I can imagine some legendary Pokemon that just join your party temporarily. Maybe they just fight alongside you at the climax of the plot, or maybe there's an item like the Eon Flute that lets you call on them whenever you like, but you don't get to keep them indefinitely and not in your PC either. I would even consider making the box mascots not be legendaries again, like it was in Generation 1. Back then, the starters were the mascots because the series wasn't established, and so your first partners were the best way to market the games, which isn't the case anymore. But imagine games where the box mascots are some kind of powerful and unique and version-exclusive Pokemon that can even be representative of the game and even be part of the story, but without being legendary. Like, for example, what if the box mascots were the rival's ace or the antagonist's ace Pokemon? I think that would help preserve the mystery of the real legends for when you do eventually find them at the end of some serious exploration based on vague rumors, or even if they are part of the story, but you don't know about them going in.
As for mythical Pokemon, they really need to go back to having a presence within the game. This is in the subtext of the game, like Mew or Celebi, without necessarily being in the game. Have them as movie promos, sure, and then if you're gonna have them as movie promos and make them as downloadable events, let us unlock that event in-game. I really do think Generation 4 and Generation 5 with Victini were the peak of this. Even in Generation 4 with Heart Gold and Soul Silver, if you got the event Celebi, you could go back in time and battle Giovanni. It ties into the region, it ties into the story. You understand why Celebi is a mythical Pokemon in the Johto region and its ties to the Ilex Forest. You can understand why an evil organization like Team Rocket would want to get hold of Mew. I gotta admit though, when a Pokemon like Deoxys hasn't been available for well over a decade, I do like the idea of reintroducing it into the remakes in some kind of post-game event. I did think that was a really cool way to include Deoxys, and if they do Diamond and Pearl remakes, I'm kind of hoping Arceus has something similar going on for it.
Thanks for going over this with me, Toby. I'm kind of surprised that we have such similar opinions on this.
Thank you for having me on, Umbreon, and if I could, I want to end on a message of hope. Because while yes, the trend has been for the last few generations, the mythical Pokemon just get kind of shoehorned in, I gotta say, what they did with Meltan and Melmetal did not go unnoticed. These two Pokemon individually, I think, probably drove a lot of interest in Pokemon. It's the same kind of thing that Mew did for Generation 1. And I'd like to think that that's not going unnoticed. And if anyone at Game Freak or Pokemon are watching these kinds of videos, that they hear what we're saying about mythical Pokemon and what we would like them to be and what we want to see more of. Mostly, just more creativity. And things like Meltan and Melmetal, they're great.
And thank you for watching. If you have your own ideas of how we could improve the idea of legendary Pokemon in general, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. And if you haven't already, make sure to check out the video we did on Toby's channel, where we go over some pretty specific and in-depth ideas for how to make Kubfu better, as well as the DLC for Isle of Armor in general. And of course, thank you to my patrons, including luxury patron Ethan Saffron, but today, especially thank you to this month's new patrons, Winged Fig, Gano Hasanbegovic, and Otto Alves. And thank you also to Maggie for upping your contribution. I'm Umbreon Libris. I'll see you in the next chapter.